All right, and we have reached time. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Amanda Jameson, and I am one of the product training specialists here at ATI. My role is making sure that everybody is comfortable with their resources. So that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about later on in the session. But first, I am joined by my wonderful co-hostesses, Dr. Janet McMahon and Dr. Teresa Stevens. So we have some exciting things in store. I will let them introduce themselves more in a moment, but first, just a quick note, everybody is muted for sound quality today. However, this session is meant to be helpful. So if you have questions, please feel free, use that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to go ahead and chat in questions, and we will save most of them for the end, but we would love to see them. Also be aware, we're going to have some interactive portions throughout, so do have your phones ready for that as we get to it later on. So I will let my co-hostesses say hello real quick here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome today to our session. We've got a really great lineup for you today, starting off with resilience. I think you're going to really enjoy our guest speaker today, as well as we're going to follow right behind with things that you can do with your ATI resources, what's in your toolkit, and help you get ready for semester finals. They're fast approaching. So my name is Dr. Janet McMahon. It's a pleasure. And with no further ado, I want to pass the baton to my colleague, Dr. T. Stevens, who's going to help us today with resilience. Tees, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And while I do that, I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. I have been a nurse for a little over 35 years. And the first part of my career was spent in practice, mostly in the ED trauma area. And I have spent almost the past 20 years, about 20 years in research and academia. And resilience is my area of research. And I have been exploring this concept, as it relates to nursing students and nursing professionals for quite a while now. So I'm going to share you just some tidbits about what I have learned in this journey and some things that I feel are essential for you as students to know as you start to think about where you're going in your career and the paths that you're going to take. And you're going to have lots of options. So one thing that I have learned is that we truly can mitigate our risk for negative outcomes in our life by following some of these tips I'm going to be sharing with you. So I call this Beyond Surviving, Preparing to Thrive in Your Nursing Career. And I would like to invite you to follow along with me. If you have a mobile device, then you can just hold that up to your screen on this QR code and join me in this session. And I see we've got people joining. Awesome. And there's some little emojis if you like to use those. I love seeing those. Let me show the instruction bar. If you would like to just go by the browser, that's at the top of the screen now. So lots of hearts, lots of smiley faces. So you all keep those going, and I will keep the option there on the screen so that you can join at any time. Let me get this off here. Okay. All right. Without further ado, we're going to get right into this. Okay. Well, for some reason, we're frozen here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So what do you think, based on what you have seen in the clinical environment and when you're doing your clinical experiences, what do you think are the biggest challenges that nurses face in the practice environment? And you can just type that directly in. I would love to. Time, absolutely. Stress, imposter syndrome, excellent answer there. Time management, short staffing, organization, Shortage, I'm guessing that's a shortage of staff, burnout, underpay, nurse intimidation, confidence. Oh, that's very good answers. Patient deaths, patient to nurse ratio, otherwise known as safe staffing, burnout, absolutely, negativity, underpay, sleep, I'm guessing lack of sleep, no time, anxiety, a lack of appreciation, bullying. You all have observed a lot of challenges. Everything that you are seeing on here are the root causes of what we call systems issues that lead to burnout and moral distress. And a lot of my work is in that area. And one of the things that I have learned and that I want to teach to nursing students is that you can mitigate your risk for burnout and moral distress by making different choices. And this is at the heart of resilience. So when we think about resilience, often we think about the ability to bounce back from something that is stressful, but it's really more than that. Resilience is a mindset, and it allows you to really navigate through difficult times in your life and actually come out stronger on the other end. So I'm going to share with you 4 strategies that I have developed based on my conceptual model of resilience with nursing students and nursing professionals. The lesson here is that prevention is better than cure. I would much rather work with a group of nurses or nursing students to prevent burnout or moral distress than to have to recover from that. And you've learned that probably as students, and a lot of what you're learning is probably spent on preventative care. And how do we promote health and well-being? Well, that's what my work is promoting health and well-being in nurses and nursing students so that you can thrive within your professional career. So why resilience? Well, this was me in 1986 as a brand new registered nurse. And I quickly discovered when I entered the work environment that it was a little bit different than what I had expected it to be. I was well prepared for the roles and responsibilities of a registered nurse. I had had a great experience in school. I had passed my licensure exam, and I thought I was ready for this work environment. We know it's not going to be easy. We know there are going to be a lot of hard days and challenges. We see that when we do our clinical experiences, right? You all have named some of those things. But what I wasn't prepared for were those unexpected stressors, those things like you mentioned, short staffing, bullying, incivility, toxic work environments, all of these things that added unnecessary stress to an already stressful job. And during that first year as a new graduate, I remember very well standing in the medicine room and thinking to myself, if I ever have a chance to make it better for other new nurses, that's what I'm going to do. So that really set my path moving forward, and what led me to research this topic of resilience. Move forward 20 plus years, and I was in graduate school, and I was looking at the very high rates of new graduate nurse attrition. And we knew why the nurses were leaving their first place of employment. But what I wanted to know was, why did others stay? Why did they choose to stay even though they were facing a lot of these challenges? And they were described as being resilient, but nothing else was said about it. So there was not a lot of information at that time about what it is and why it seems to matter so much. So my first task was in defining resilience as it relates to nursing students and nursing professionals so that we can measure it, and most importantly, so that we can learn how to teach it. And that's what I've been doing for almost 20 years now. And I'm going to share those strategies with you today. One, we know that it matters because not only does it mitigate your risk for burnout, it decreases your risk for burnout, but it also contributes, it increases your chance of having an overall enhanced sense of well-being. And we know that burnout begins in academia, which is one of the reasons that it's important that you learn this now, because the things I'm going to be telling you are important for your role as a student. You face stress as students, don't you? Any thumbs up on that? Anybody here facing stress as a student? Yes, everybody that's in the room, I believe, faces stress as a student. And we can all do things today that will increase our chances of success, but also contribute to a greater sense of well-being and contentment in life. So what we are aiming for is something that we call professional well-being. And this is just quality of life as it relates to your professional career. It means you don't hate going to work every day. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be rainbows and unicorns every single day. There's no job like that. But it does mean that you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. You feel like you're contributing, and that you have a job that you enjoy doing, and that you feel like you are productive in that job. We do not want to just survive as nurses. You work way too hard to earn that license to just merely survive. What you want to do is thrive, as the title of this presentation indicates. So before we move any further, how would you define resilience based on what you know today? And I'll just give you just a few seconds to do this. We won't spend a lot of time on this, and then I'm going to share with you how I define it. So how do you define resilience? To never give up when things get difficult. Very good. Standing up for what you believe in. Some of you have heard me talk before, I think. Pushing forward, the ability to cope, able to keep going, ability to bounce back from a challenge or from trauma, coming back from mistakes. Absolutely. Keep going, be strong, perseverance, overcoming struggles, keeping up the fight, learning from challenges. Let's see here. Lots of great answers here. And you know what? You all are all correct. These are all parts of being resilient or highly resilient. Now, this is how I define resilience. And it was originally defined specifically for nursing students. And then we've adapted this so that it relates to nurses in general as well. But I use it with nursing students, new graduate nurses, nurse leaders, really nurses at all levels in their career. But it's defined as an individualized process, meaning it looks different for every person, depending on your background, your personality, your previous life experiences, where you are now, what you're experiencing in this moment. And it's a process, meaning it takes time. We have to be patient with ourselves and give ourselves grace as we're moving through this period of growth. And really, that's what it is. It's a process of personal growth and transformation that occurs when we experience stress or adversity. So it's an opportunity to become better or stronger because of something difficult we have faced. And what we find is that highly resilient individuals, when I'm measuring resilience in individuals, they have what are called personal protective factors. And these are the behaviors or characteristics that we find over and over again in highly resilient individuals. These are what we actually measure, and I'll show you what some of those are in just a minute. What happens is when we face something that's really stressful or traumatic in our lives, in the midst of that, it's our response that matters. So instead of just coping with however we have tended to cope with things, and sometimes that's not really healthy, we choose to use one of these protective factors that helps us get through that time in our life. And most highly resilient individuals choose multiple protective factors to use. The great part about this is what happens as a result of doing that choice that we make in how we respond leads to cumulative successes. So think about skills that you've learned as a student. You've had to practice them over and over again to become successful. It's the same thing with your journey towards enhanced resilience. We have to practice how we cope with stress, continually practicing this until we start to see some results. And those results are that we are able to better cope with future stressors, not just the one we have right now, but we do better in the future. We're less prone to negative outcomes. And the big thing here is that our overall sense of well-being is enhanced. We just have a better outlook on life in general if we are highly resilient. So these are those personal protective factors that we find in highly resilient individuals. And I've chosen the ones here that I find most often in nurses and nursing students. And these are very, very important that you put into your toolbox, and that if you're lacking any of these, that you start to recognize that these are the things that you really need to rely on when you're in a bad place, when you're extremely stressed or just going through a really tough time. And when I don't have time today to go into each one of these, but you can see these and you probably recognize the ones that you have and the ones that maybe you need to build upon. But those of you that answered the question about how you define resilience, you see many of these in this list, don't you? These are all part of increasing your own personal resilience. So much of my resilience work at the beginning of my research was quantitative in nature. I did a lot of studies and I like to measure resilience, but it was missing a human aspect. And I really needed to understand what it means to be resilient from a personal perspective. So I started interviewing Holocaust survivors, and I've been doing that for about 15 years now, and gathering the narratives of their lives and how they respond during a horrible time in their life. I call these people the superheroes of resilience. One of the pictures on your screen obviously is not of Holocaust survivors, but they are extremely resilient nursing students that I have worked with in Haiti. And these individuals demonstrate these protective factors in their everyday life. And I have taken their narratives, their stories that they have so gracefully shared and graciously shared with me. And as I gathered their stories and started to analyze them, all of those protective factors started to assemble within 4 common themes. Those 4 common themes are purpose, priorities, perspective, and personal responsibility. And I call these the 4 Ps of personal resilience. And I feel these are the key to mitigating your risk for burnout and moral distress as professionals. So let's go ahead and look at these very quickly. Purpose is why you are a nurse. Now, we have the big purpose in our life is, why are we born? Why do we exist? And that's much too big of a topic for us to discuss today. That's a very philosophical discussion. What I'm talking about is your work why. Why did you choose to become a nurse? And this is very important that you understand that your reasons for choosing nursing might be very different from someone else's. And the key about the definition of purpose is that it's a stable and generalized intention, meaning that the reason you chose to become a nurse is going to stay with you pretty much your entire career. Now, it may evolve and change a little bit, but like for myself, almost 40 years as a nurse, I still have that in me. What drove me to nursing way back then is still inside me, and I still find the same things meaningful and purposeful to me. I just know different ways of accomplishing that. So let me ask you really quickly, why did you choose nursing as a career? And this can just be a very brief response. And see where we are. I like helping people. Excellent. I love helping people. Very good. To help others. Empathy, representation. Always wanted to help people. Job security, giving back, money. It's rewarding. Aligns with your personal values. A contributor to other. Your grandfather. I love that. Compassion. Let's see what else we have coming up here. To make a difference, helping and saving people, to be there for people in their time of need. Your son was born with medical issues. We find often people go into nursing because of something that has happened to them and a desire to help. This relates to your core purpose. And why this is important is that whatever path you choose as a nurse, whatever jobs you take, and you'll probably take several over your career, whatever educational path you take next, you need to be true to this purpose. Now, you may have multiple purposes, but the one that you've named today is probably your driving purpose. You need to be able to do that in your job. And often what happens is as we move through our careers, we often get away from that core purpose because we may go into an administrator role. We may go, into different types of leadership roles, and it takes us away from that core purpose that gives us meaning in our jobs. And I've found that many people, that is the root of why they experience burnout or moral distress. One of the most important things that we've learned through our research in just the past few years is that if you were able to fulfill your purpose a minimum of 20% of the time at work, you can greatly reduce your risk for burnout and moral distress. That doesn't mean you have to fulfill your purpose 100% of the time. It's just 20%. So when you are looking at potential jobs, when you are looking at opportunities within a job, maybe joining a committee or a task force or working on a special project or going back to school, think about your purpose. Is it consistent with your purpose? Can you fulfill that and do that meaningful work at least 20% of the time in this role? If you can, that's a wise decision. If you can't, you really need to think about it and compare it to the risk and also the return on your investment in doing that. The second P are your priorities, and these go hand in hand with purpose. These, however, will change as you move through life. They are not stable necessarily. As you age and as you move through different generational stages, your priorities in life are going to change. If you're single now and you don't have a partner, if you were to get a partner, your priorities may change. If you buy a house, your priorities may change. If you have children, your priorities may change. If you have an elderly parent that you're caring for, your priorities may change. So priorities are what matter to you in this time and space of your life. And understanding that we have to make sure that we make time for what matters to us. Otherwise, we feel resentful. We feel like we are giving everything to everything else but what truly matters. And this requires us to set some boundaries and to really be intentional in how we spend our time. Priorities are also all about what are your core values. Now, this is really important when you're choosing a job as well, or when you're deciding what you're going to do next, to make sure your core values are consistent with that of the organizations. Every organization you will join, I think every organization, I've never seen one that didn't have a mission, vision, and value statement. There might be one out there, but I haven't found one. Go and look at that organization's core values. Are they consistent with your own? This is important because that mission, vision, and values statements of an organization drive everything they do. So if you care a lot about compassion, you want to see that they show compassion in the things that they do as an organization, because it will drive all of the activities within that organization. If you like innovation and you like being on the cutting edge of innovation, you want to look to see, do they value that as well? This also is a great way to mitigate your risk. So looking, is this job or this opportunity consistent with my purpose and my priorities? Those are the two main questions you need to start with when you are looking at any opportunity. The third P is perspective. And this is how we frame our situation, how we look at our situation, whether it's a good situation or a stressful situation. And sometimes it's all in our minds, the way we respond. So I'm going to talk about stressful situations right now, because that's where we tend to have the most negative outcomes and where we tend to detour from our path or our journey. And we get into some of the muddy waters because we have a stressful situation or something that really causes great anxiety in us. And we sometimes make bad choices during that moment that causes us further harm down the road. So if you think to your patho classes, you know that our stress response system begins with an alarm in the brain. Okay. So whatever stimuli is happening that is triggering this stress response, it happens very, very quickly. And before we even know it, it's sending out all those stress hormones throughout our body. So we have system-wide changes that happen in very quick time that causes us to have an increased heart rate, rapid breathing. Maybe you get stomach pain, a headache, all of these types of physical manifestations of a stress response. This is where we can't trust our emotions. Now, we have emotions for a reason. We have this stress response for a reason, but sometimes our reaction is not consistent with the true reality of the situation. And this is where we can really take some control of the situation and make much better choices. I call this having an informed perspective. So it's moving from a reaction that we often have in a stressful situation to a response. And I find that highly resilient individuals do this very well. And I've studied them and watched them in action. And that's what I'm going to show you now, this process that they tend to take. The first step in reframing your perspective around a negative situation is self-awareness, is understanding your reaction to that. What is happening to you? What are you feeling? Has it happened before? Do you recognize this feeling? Give it a name. Okay. Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it worry? What is it? That alone can help you calm down. Just take a deep breath and name it. And then ask yourself, has this happened to me before? How have I handled it in the past? And did I have a good outcome then? And then what message do I need to be sending to my brain right now? Do you need to say, calm down? This isn't as bad as what we're feeling it. Feelings aren't facts. Sometimes we can't trust our emotions. But the first thing is knowing what's happening to you. The second step is situational awareness, and these must go hand in hand. Often we know what's happening to us, but we don't take the time to look at the situation and to gather information before we respond. We just dive right in with the reaction. We send that hateful email or we send a text message or whatever, and we regret it later. We have to pause for a moment and gather some information so that we have the facts around what is actually happening here. And it allows us to make an informed decision or an informed response based on what the facts are. So we have to stop, pause all activity. Now, this doesn't have to be a long time. If you have time, I have a self-imposed 24-hour rule that if I have an intense emotional response to a situation, if it's not an emergency, and I don't face many emergencies unless I'm in the trauma setting, and I'm not there now. If it's not a true emergency, I make myself take 24 hours to reflect on it, to gather information, to talk to someone else who can help me see the bigger picture, to reframe my perspective before I respond. That's the second stage. Think, what are the facts? What do I know? What's the best outcome? What's the worst outcome? A lot of times we fear things that will never come to fruition, and it drives us to really, really bad knee-jerk reactions. If we really reframe this, we realize that a lot of times we have more choices in how we respond than what we think we do. And then finally, you respond. This is where you act. Is there an urgent need right now? Probably not, but there might be. Can I wait? How long can I wait? Can I make a better decision if I postpone this? Or do I need to bring someone else in to this? Just doing this reframing of your perspective often will allow you to make much better decisions and change and choices that you will not regret in the long run. The fourth and final P is personal responsibility. And there's many aspects to this, and I'm going to just focus on a couple of the personal responsibility, but we are responsible for our choices, and we are responsible for how we respond to stressful situations. And we are responsible for how we manage our time. And a lot of times we expect situations to change without changing ourselves. But those two actually go hand in hand. Now, when we're talking about burnout and moral distress in the work environment, we know those are systems issues. Those are not personal issues or weaknesses on the nurse's part. It's because of systems that have really major flaws within them that need to be changed. And I'm not saying we don't need to change those. We absolutely do. And I believe that it's going to be the resilient nurses who change the systems, because we're going to stand up and speak out. And that's part of our personal responsibility, that we advocate for change that needs to happen. We advocate for ourselves, and we advocate for others within our profession. Did you know that personal resilience is an ethical responsibility? Have any of you all been taught that? Give me a thumbs up or a heart if you've been taught this when you've studied the Code of Ethics for Nurses. Awesome. Many of you are doing this. So Provision 5 of our Code of Ethics for Nurses, this is the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics, says that the nurse owes the same duties to self as to others. Did you get that? Including the responsibility to promote health and safety, preserve wholeness of character and integrity, maintain competence, and continue personal and professional growth. There's your resilience. So it's not being selfish when we establish boundaries. It's not being selfish when we promote safe staffing. It's not being selfish when we promote healthy work environments. It's not being selfish when we do any of these things. It's an ethical responsibility. And you are the leaders of our future profession. And so you need to start embodying this and embracing this now, and start to learn these basic concepts of how do you enhance your own personal resilience, because you're going to need to model it to other new nurses coming along. You're also going to need to teach it. You'll be preceptors before you know it. And you will want to be able to have that moral courage to demonstrate this in your own professional behaviors. Late last year, right before the holidays, excuse me, this was late November, early December, the International Council for Nurses also revised the International Code of Ethics for Nurses. And this is just one piece of that revised code. There's many more elements that speak to personal resilience and work-life balance and a healthy lifestyle. It is worldwide now being embraced that this is an ethical responsibility, and we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to each other and our profession, and especially to those that are coming behind us, to begin to adopt these behaviors where we understand that it's important that we have purposeful, meaningful work, that we make time for our priorities in our lives, that we don't apologize for prioritizing our family, our friends, our faith, whatever it is that's important to you, that matters. And that we are able to be better nurses because of these things. Like I said at the beginning, it's really all about your mindset and how you look at stress and adversity. Now, none of us like it. You know, I would never wish to have a difficult time in my life. And I've had quite a few, as you probably have as well. We don't enjoy them. We don't ask for them. But a resilient mindset looks at stress or adversity as an opportunity to grow. So it's true personal growth and asking, you know, what can I learn from this? What is my role in this? And this is how I approach the problems that we have within healthcare now that are related to burnout and moral distress. It's very, very stressful. But what is my role in changing that? How am I going to contribute to the change in the culture of nursing and in the culture of healthcare? Chaos breeds effective change. And we've seen a lot of change over the past 2.5 years because of the pandemic. We've seen a lot of good change that has happened while we would never have wished this pandemic, we have seen many things that have happened in society as a whole that we probably would never have had if we hadn't have had this, or it wouldn't have come as quickly. So you can probably think of many things in your life that has changed since March of 2020. Healthcare is the same way. We're seeing many, many changes in our profession, and a lot of it has been spurred on because of the pandemic. All the attention that we're getting about those issues that you listed that cause great stress in nursing, it's receiving huge attention now outside of nursing. We see it in the media. We see it everywhere through social media. We see it on the news. We see it in journals. So it's not just limited, but there's a lot of people talking about this, and that's how change is going to happen. And you're going to be a big part of that change. Oh, let me go back to that one more time. So the self-awareness and the situational awareness, that is part of that perspective of developing that resilient mindset. That's where you truly determine where you fit in all of this. Now, none of us are supposed to fit everywhere. That's why we embrace diversity. And for a long time, nursing was a profession that truly cherished conformity and assimilation. We wanted everybody to look alike and act alike. And in some cultures, that still exists. But as we have learned to embrace diversity, and a lot of that has come through our work in interprofessional teams, is that we need diverse perspectives. We need different skill sets. We need people who think differently, who act differently, who have different experiences to broaden our perspective as a whole. So as you're looking for where you fit best as a new nurse, think about where your unique skills, competencies, talents, all of those things that make you, you, and give you purpose and meaning in the work. Where is that going to fit best? You're going to have a lot of job offers, probably. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you. And I encourage you to be really intentional in how you look at those opportunities. Really think about them. Does it align with purpose? Are you able to still give yourself to your priorities? Or is it going to require everything if you take that job? Are you willing to give that up? Think about what the cost is. There's always a cost to any yes that we give, and that's okay. We're going to say yes to a lot of things, but look at it and what is the best fit for you. It may not be the same as your best friend or your partner. Where do you fit? Where can you truly find your purpose in this big profession of nursing? There's a place where you can be fulfilled and you can truly thrive as a professional nurse. And I hope that you will do that and you'll start thinking about that today. So here is my email address. If you have any questions for me or you want more information about anything that I have said, I would love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And it has been a pleasure for me to be with you today. And I love talking to nursing students, and I wish you all the best as you continue on your journey. And I'm going to turn it over to our hosts and let them carry on from here.
Dr. Stevens, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I'm reading the chats and I'm loving seeing all these hearts on the screen. So it was a beautiful topic. So are there any questions, Amanda, that we can get to real quick for Dr. Stevens?
No, there's some thank yous and things like that. And then there's specific questions about the content we're going to be going into today. We're not going to be going into specific nursing content. We're going to be talking today about how you can use resources at your disposal to help you find success. So just FYI for those that had that out there, but I do say thank you to those who have been chatting in so far. We appreciate your input.
Super.
Thank you.
Tees.
Thank you, and have a good second half.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about the next part of this presentation here. We have some objectives ahead here. At the end of this part here, we're going to help you understand that why behind ATI. Why are you using these resources? What benefit does it have for you right now, wherever you're at in your program? We're going to help you understand the value and the use of your assessments, those practice assessments, those proctored assessments, your expectations, focus review, and what that pulse thing is all about. And then we're going to look at some of the resources that you can use to prepare for your future. So we're going to be discussing all that today. So I have a QR code. This is going to be a different one here right now. So if you got those found out, go ahead and scan it. We're not going to have multiple questions, but we are going to have one. For those that cannot use the QR code scanner, there is going to be a link up on the next page. So go ahead, get that scanned, get yourselves ready, and we are going to have another question for you. So after all of that you've learned, in one word, how will resilience play a role in your end of semester success? Go ahead and chat that in. If you didn't scan the QR code, that's okay too. You can just go to pollev.com/ATI testing 414, and that will let you join in to respond. And then you can also choose the text option, ATI testing 414 to 22333, to go ahead and send in your responses. So this should be up there live. Please make sure you use that screen there. So it's at the top of the screen, that pollev.com/ATI testing 414. Remember, using that Q&A. That Q&A is for questions for us. Responses, please use this area over here.
I love it. So here we go with confident, determination. Well, that's a big one. And motivation, Amanda. This is good.
Yeah.
Studying, good. That's what we want to hear. Dedication, positive confidence. That's great.
Some things in the chat too about success and working under stress.
I love it. Keep them coming, students. We want to hear from you. This is important.
Survival. I see that popping up there on the side there. Great. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing.
We love seeing your thoughts. This is great.
Okay. And some emojis too. Thank you. Gotta have fun with it, right?
I love the food ones. I don't know how they do that, but that's pretty cool. That's great. Bring it on. That's super.
So let's remember what's in this for you. So why are you using ATI? Because we're mapping things to help you find success in your program and also beyond, what you're going to be doing in that first year of nursing. Before you get there, how do we pass NCLEX? And you can see some of the positive feedback we've received from students in the past that, using this has really helped them get ready for NCLEX and be ready to become a nurse.
So I love the comments on the screen that we want to share with you, because while you're in it, whether you're a brand new student or you're soon to graduate, and I would love for you to type in what semester you're in the question and answer. Are you fundamentals? Are you at the end of the line here? Where are you at? We want to know who you are. But the comments that we hear back from you are just amazing. And so we get a lot of thank yous. So while you're in it, you may not realize the value of what we can bring to you and how much they appreciate that. And this is something that you can actually use after you graduate as well. So we love the thank yous that we get. And I love hearing that, they didn't really appreciate it until they really got closer to graduation. So for our new people here in the audience, great. And this is what's in it for you. So your colleagues have shown through qualitative feedback that, you're in the right place. So Amanda, we're going to share some more resources.
Yes, we are. And I want to say we're getting a lot of comments in here, fundamentals all the way through to some getting ready to graduate December. Congrats.
That's a big deal.
How are you going to prep? So no matter where you're at in your program, one important thing to know is about the NCLEX test plan. So the NCLEX test plan is going to tell you exactly what you need to know for NCLEX. So if you go to the ncsbn.org/test plans, you will see that you can download and see this document, and it's going to tell you what you need to know to be successful on boards. All of your courses are going to be mapped to this. All of the ATI tests are going to be mapped to this, because this is based on what you're going to do in your first year of nursing practice.
And beyond.
And beyond, and beyond. Did you want to explain this nice little pie chart to them all?
Well, I love the pie chart, and I find that students, and I've taught for many, many, many years prior to coming to ATI, and this is kind of a secret that you want to know about whether you're brand new or getting ready to graduate. Pay attention to this, and I highly recommend that you go to ncsbn.org, the / test plans, because this is the secret sauce. They'll tell you, what some of the things look like. So this is the components of the NCLEX assessment, whether it's RN or PN, and they have both plans on there. Always told my students this when I taught fundamentals, and they said, hey, Dr. McMahon, this was really helpful, because there's even pieces on the website that can do questions of the week or update you with different things. So this is a great secret as to maybe you want to know about what's on the different categories. Like for us at ATI, management of care, we actually do a great job at ATI of mirroring what you're going to see when you graduate. So if you pay attention to these things, inside the categories are more subcategories. For example, management of care, you might see one that says advanced directives, self-determination, life planning. So what does that mean to you? Well, you might get a question on, how to talk about integrating advanced directives in the client's plan of care. But maybe you didn't get that experience in clinical. So you have to know these things. So this is where the marriage of class, clinical, simulation, lab begin. But this is kind of a great opportunity to look at, what do I have to know about? Providing the client with information. How would I say that? What would I do if the client responded negatively? So this helps tee you up for how to think like a nurse and what kind of things you may see in practice with that.
Yes, and this document too can be a nice way for you to track your own growth through the program. Print it out, and as you learn about these topics, check them off the list so you can see what you're tackling, why your instructors are teaching you what they are, and why ATI is testing you the way it is. Because this is all going to go right back into the practice tests. Many of you are probably starting some of these right now for your terms. It might be your very first ATI practice assessment. So we have this cycle that's going to help you identify your areas of strengths and weakness and help you figure out a path to success. So you're going to take a practice test, closed book, as if it were the real deal, as if you were sitting down for NCLEX, because the whole point of taking a practice test in ATI, not about a score, we don't care about your score on it. The whole point is to generate your personalized, focused review study guide. You're going to get a study guide based on what you need to know. Depending on how you do with that, it's also going to generate a post-study quiz for you to take so you can study and then check yourself. And that post-study quiz is going to give you another study guide. So that way you can keep narrowing down those areas you need to know. You might do 2 practice tests going through this cycle the same way. And then you're going to eventually take a proctored test. That thing that's kind of more like the NCLEX, right? You're going to be sitting down, someone's monitoring you, you're going to feel like you are sitting down for NCLEX. And that, when you finish it up, guess what? It's going to give you another study guide. We're going to give you ample opportunities to keep finding out, what do I need to work on so you can use your time effectively?
So I think, great job, Amanda. I think this is for anybody who's on this webinar. Pay attention to this and what we said. So when you take those practice assessments, I want to give you some really good advice. Take them seriously and take them independently. Some of your faculty members may actually have them done during class time. That's great. If you're assigned independently, I recommend closed notes, no books. Actually take it for what it is. I would expect, depending upon where you're at in the semester, that you may not know all the questions. Nobody does, especially if you're only about 60% into your course. So would you think your score would be really high? No, that's okay, because what happens, to Amanda's point, is that that focus review gets generated on what you don't know. And so that's when you're going to want to go into focus review and go, this is what ATI is telling me are my opportunities to learn or my content gap areas. And then what's great about this is that if you score below a certain amount, you may have a post-study quiz come at you. You'll want to take it. You're reinforcing your learning through repetition and learning. So this is a really serious piece of information that most students don't know about. So again, take it seriously. It's okay not to do well. If your prof gives you this at the 50% mark in October, I would expect you, or November or March, I would expect you not to do 100% because you haven't had all the material yet. So take it for what it is, because ATI is going to prescribe a great focus review just for you. Now, these are some of the examples of different types of test questions. And as we help you understand what clinical judgment is, and that's the ability to be able to exercise great decision skills at the moment in time so that you can actually take care of people the most safe and effective way. But when you look at our test questions, you're going to see them look like this. And again, you may see a chart on the right-hand side or some nurse's notes, and you're going to have to be able to read these, understand what the question is asking, refer back to that information, and then complete the question based upon your clinical judgment skills and your ability to make good decisions on priority, frameworks, or whatever it else is. So nursing is not black and white, it's very gray. And every patient is different. We're all different with our DNA. So you need to be able to think about what's the right choice, what's the best practice for these things, and how am I going to complete these options. So these are some wonderful examples of why you want to take these things seriously. And then back to that focus review, if you didn't answer it right, then that concept may come up to you and you'll get a great score. Amanda, do you want to explain the focus review and how this can really guide you as your prescription for success?
Yes. So when you get that results report, you're going to see this, those NCLEX test plan categories we saw on that pie chart. We're going to break up the content that you received and that you need to work on into those categories so you can see where you maybe need to spend more time and maybe where you don't need to spend as much. So you can manage your time effectively, plan for how you're going to study, and you can start to understand what these areas are. Because as you click on an area, it's going to expand it out and show you what specific tasks you need to work on. So you'll notice here that advanced directives thing right from the test plan, right? That was the same thing we saw on the test plan earlier, management of care, advanced directives, right from the NCSBN. We're giving you that same content, but we're giving it to you in a way that makes it a little bit easier, more guided, because you're going to click that focus review button and it's going to open up these ebooks. And these ebooks are your down and dirty, what do I need to know for NCLEX resource? They have everything in nice, concise paragraphs, simple language, so you can see exactly what you need without some of the fluff that sometimes can occur in the textbook. And this is going to drive you to what you didn't know. So you're going to take that test, identify your areas you need to improve, and it's going to highlight it for you right in the book. So we can see here, my advanced directives piece, it's showing me where it is in the book highlighted. Not only that, it's telling me how to take notes on it with an active learning template. So I'm going to have this nice graphic organizer that's going to tell me what topics to think about as I am going back and looking over this topic. So maybe I need to read a little above where it's highlighted, a little bit below. Maybe I need to take the basic point and think beyond that a little bit to fill in the blanks, and maybe use another resource. But it's going to give me a launching point, so I know what I need to work on.
So these active learning template students, okay, this is a great time. If you haven't started a binder, get the binders out, go to wherever and get a $1 binder, and then start printing these out. Handwrite your answers to this, because I want you to start to archive these things. These concepts can come up over time more and more again, and they're fabulous. So take a look at these, because you can embellish them, or when you get to the next course, or perhaps your senior leaders, you can say, oh my gosh, I remember doing one on advanced directives, or I remember doing one on myocardial infarction. I remember missing that. You'll be able to go back and embellish that and recall. And we know that evidence-based wise, it goes from the mind to the hand to the paper. So, I know Amanda's typing in. I'm going to tell you to print it out and handwrite it in legibly, because that will help you recall. You'll find that out when you get older and you start putting Post-it pads everywhere with little pieces of notes on it so that you can remember what you have to do. Same kind of thing with concept maps. So this is a wonderful thing. Let's keep your binders from course to course, and you're going to be able to go back and review and embellish and reinforce your learning with that. Let's go on, Amanda. So these focus reviews, just FYI, if you're not taking them seriously, that's one of the missed opportunities with helping you be successful as a nursing student, because they're identifying your gap areas of what you don't know. So if you reinforce it, and if you get a bonus of a quiz because maybe you have more to learn, all the better, so that you can learn. And then when you get to the proctored assessment, it's going to be very reminiscent. Chances are, if those concepts were on the practice assessment or assessments, if you're taking 2 seriously, you're probably going to see something very similar on a proctored. So it really behooves you to take these things seriously and apply your knowledge. Amanda, take it away.
All right, so you're going to take those proctor tests down the line here, right? And those proctor tests are going to give you pieces of information about how likely you are to be successful on NCLEX based on the content you've mastered so far. And that's going to give you a pulse score. So the pulse score will be accessible from your homepage. On your homepage, you'll see the View Pulse after you've taken your first proctored test, not your practice, the proctored. Or you can go to the My Results tab, and you'll see it in the upper right-hand corner there. And when you click in, you're going to see your probability of passing NCLEX, whether you're on track, you need improvement, what have you. And you're going to see how much of your other ATI resources you've been engaging with. And then down below, you're going to see the test that you've taken, how you scored, whether you're on track, you need improvement, and your probability of passing NCLEX. And then we're going to recommend resources that you have beyond that focused review to help you improve. So the focus review is a starting point, and it's a great way to study, but everyone learns a little bit differently. Some of us like videos, some of us like to apply and do to really get it down. So we're going to give you some other resources that you have available to suggest what else might help you learn and master and practice this content.
Just to FYI students, I always tell your faculty, when I talk to your faculty, I tell them to take the practice test too. It's humbling, and don't be surprised if your faculty member tells you that they saw some of those questions that you took. So again, that's how we learn. I want to know what you guys are doing, in these tests. So faculty have access to the practice test, not the proctored. So it's actually really healthy to have those discussions in class to say, hey, professor, I noticed that, ATI talked about such and such. Are we going to cover that? Or is that something that I need to do independently? have those discussions with your faculty, but don't kid yourself. They're looking at their practice tests too. They can look at them and take them. It's a good experience.
It really is.
It
And you
is.
have even more. So one of the things that your Pulse recommendations will make is to use your learning system quiz bank. So if all of this talk about questions seems a little bit much, don't worry. You have a quiz bank that you have access to at any time to keep practicing questions. It is called Learning System. It is under your My ATI Test tab, and you can narrow it right down by going to the type filter to quiz bank. And you will see either RN or PN, whichever program you're in. It's got videos on the back to walk you through how to use it. And it's going to help you learn how to do nursing questions, because nursing questions aren't just, hey, can you memorize this thing? You may have noticed nursing questions can involve paying attention to a lot of information and really determining what it's asking you. Sometimes it's about knowing what to do first because all the answers are technically correct, right? So this is going to help you focus on that. You'll see pre-made quizzes, and there's an example of one on the left here. And the pre-made quizzes come with a hint button that are going to highlight what you should focus on, give you glossary terms, and it has a very valuable critical thinking guide that's going to take information from your Nurse Logic modules. If you haven't accessed them, they are super helpful, by the way.
They are.
And it's going to distill that down into a little test guide. So this critical thinking guide is going to help you think about prioritization frameworks, clinical judgment, and test taking strategies to answer nursing questions. These are going to give you topics to review whenever you're all done. Not going to give you that fancy focused review, but it is going to give you topics to go back and study. And it'll also tell you rationales as you go. On the right-hand side of the screen is the build your own quiz portion of the quiz bank. There's a dynamic section where you can go in and say, you know, I want to take things in a test mode. I want to do 10 questions today on med-surg stuff. You can do it. You can go in here. You can even go up and browse for questions on specific topics. And whatever you put together, it's going to let you practice and take it a step further from what you saw in the pre-made quizzes, because you're going to be the one to highlight what you think is important. You can strike out answers you don't think are correct, and you can write yourself notes. So maybe there's something you need to look up. Put a note in there. So when you go back and review it when you're done, you go, oh yeah, that thing. I need to look that up. And you can.
You know, as I'm listening to you, Amanda, and I'm thinking about our audience today. So if you do a peer study group at all, this is a great thing to do too, where you can do it in a group setting as well and have that dialogue with answering questions. And that also reinforces learning too. So you can do it independently. You can do it in your group settings, or maybe even in clinical post-conference. You know, talk to your professors about this. Learning Quiz Bank is a fabulous opportunity for you to reinforce your own learning with content areas. Don't study what you already know. Study what you don't know on those concepts, and let the focus review guide you with this. But this is a resource that can also help you reinforce your own learning. Let's go on. I'm passionate about it. So the one thing that we are gearing towards for our newer students that are on, for the graduate ones, you're a little bit spared, but we have our NCLEX 2023 is coming as of April 1, which is fast approaching, with new next gen items. So what does that mean for you? Well, the questions are going to take a little bit of a different look about them, which is actually a good thing. But ATI has you teed up with the NCLEX experience with these videos to basically learn what that's about. And then the next gen question overview with non-nursing practice questions, so that you can learn how to take some of our new types of questions that you're going to see in time. And don't worry, we've already got them coming through on some of the practice assessments as you begin those processes. And you may even see a few coming through on the proctored in time. So we're ready at ATI, but these are two great resources that you're going to want to look at: the NCLEX experience, you know, again, and thinking about those practice assessments that do have next gen items available for this. So your faculty are very aware of this, but you may not be aware of it. So think about it from that. And then don't forget, students, you have Nurse Logic that Amanda talked about. That's how we help to teach you to think like a nurse. There's priority frameworks in there. There's clinical experience information in there. Amanda, what are the other two off the top of my head? I can't remember.
Sure. So we have that knowledge and clinical judgment.
That's right.
We have the QSIN concepts. So those nursing concepts that'll drive your care, like patient-centered care and safety. You're going to have the priority setting frameworks and test taking strategy.
Right. Yeah.
Things to help you learn how to answer these questions, put it all together. How do I take these tests? How do I prepare? So really, really valuable to take a look at that.
So that's just Nurse Logic. And again, another opportunity, students, for you, even if you're graduating, if you're struggling with how to prioritize, this is a great one to look at. And then we have our new Engaged Fundamentals. Some of you may have this opportunity in your package with that. That's an amazing resource that has the electronic textbook in it. So, but within that resource are some amazing clinical judgment and next gen type questions as well to guide you, to help prepare you for that. And let's never forget our skills modules. If you have skills in your package that your institution bought, I used them all the time when I was teaching in Virginia. My students loved them. So again, this will help you to begin to organize your thought processes on how to do things, you know, what some of the steps may be in between. So don't forget about skills modules as well. And there's many more, but these are just some of the at fingertip resources that will lead you into preparing to think like a nurse and getting yourself ready for clinical judgment and test planning.
Absolutely, yes. So what are some of those key takeaways you should have received today? Dr. Mann, I'll let you go over this part here.
So, you know, and I'm so happy to see we've got a large group on this webinar today. And so thank you, because, and we're not done with you. We want to help you be successful. So one of the things I would say to you is be resilient, like Dr. Stevens said. You know, use your peers and seek guidance for that. And this is a ripe time of the semester to do that. You know, it gets very stressful close to finals. We've talked about that. I remember it well. Faculty get stressed too. So, you know, think about peer group studying for that. I would also think about your nursing advisor. One of the best things on the planet is to go see your advisor, especially if you're struggling. Bring your ATI results with you. Show them those areas with that. Have those discussions. Talk to your professors during office hours. But these are the things that you can do to build that resilience and meet your goals that you so eloquently put on the screen today as to why you want to be that. Best advice, take the practice test seriously and independently. No help, no notes, okay? Let us hear what you don't know so that we can help you to improve on where you need to go. So this is really important. Again, no notes, no outside resources, straight on with taking the test for that. And remember that the focus review is one of your best friends for that. So use that time that's scripted and written specifically for you to learn on what you don't know, embellish your learning, buy a binder, cheap, print those active learning templates out and continue to handwrite and keep those and archive them from each one of your classes to build your knowledge, skills, and ability. You won't regret it. And then this helps you get ready for those proctored assessments. Think about the NCLEX style questions, you know, using learning systems. That's a fabulous quiz engine that you can build your own quizzes. You know, whether you want to design your own or do the dynamic quizzes. So don't miss that opportunity. Use it for content that you're not feeling comfortable with to challenge yourself to, again, get yourself more ready for that. And then your ability with that next gen 2023 has already begun at ATI for our new students today who are just entering, and for those who are going to take that test. So don't forget about the NCLEX experience and learning as to what those questions could look like so that you can be more prepared. Ounce of prevention, pound of cure. And, to our point, your ATI pulse, take that ATI pulse, think about, watch what we're telling you, look at the resources, and most importantly, good luck with your finals. Take them seriously. But ATI has it for you to help you prepare. And if you invest the time, it should pay off. So do we have any time for any questions, Amanda? We're almost
We do
at time.
have a couple minutes, so we will answer some of the questions. I do want to say thank you all so much for joining in today. On the screen is our final QR code. It is going to launch a survey to provide feedback on these sessions today. This same survey will launch, hopefully, depending on how your browser settings are, whenever you close out of the session. But if you want to stick around and ask some questions, we are going to answer some questions for about 5 minutes here. But if you are unable to, good luck with your studying and your finals. Thank you again for joining in. So I see a great question right away. So Dr. McMahon, I'm sending this one right to you.
All right.
How do you make time for extra ATI with our regular schoolwork?
You have to build it into your calendar. That's a great question. So it has to be a part of your day. So I don't know if you get up early in the morning to have your beverage, your coffee or whatever. I'm an early riser. I build that into my calendar. You want to be intentional with us to do that. Make the time to do that. Squeeze us in, but you've got to be intentional with it. It has to be a priority. We have great resources that you're using and you're able to use. Don't miss the opportunity for that. I can't tell you how many times students would come into my office and say, I'm so glad I listened to you. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this works. You are all so lucky with the resources that ATI has to build your own focus review and to find these things for you. When I went to school, like Dr. Stevens, I've been a nurse 40 years. I had to look everything up in these heavy med surge books, and it took me hours to find an answer. We've helped frame that. Put it on your calendar. Take time for that. It's essential. You won't be sorry. Trust me, you won't be sorry. Just make it a part of your daily calendar. Block time.
Because you want to think of this not as extra ATI.
It's not.
Remember, this is aligning that you have the resources that are going to help you with those courses. So yes, it is tough to balance those expectations with clinical, with classroom, with family and work, but you want to make sure that you're prioritizing this. Remember, you only have so long to get through, and then you'll have all the free time in the world again, right? So you want to make sure to use that time.
And, Amanda, I just thought of this too. We have the mobile apps too. So, if they're, out and about or in the community, or they're in a quiet space or something like that, they could also, use their phones too to access some of these things. If you're in the car and you're going somewhere and you're not driving, use that too to kind of get on. But, the other thing that you may want to think about is getting a peer study group for that too. When I was teaching up north in Maryland, I had a peer study group, and I made it sweatpant day, and we would do review questions, together. And I would say, bring in your questions. You bring in the questions. Let's have those. Bring ATI to those kind of things, have those discussions. There's lots of opportunity when you have a free moment. So maybe you just want to take some time, or instead of watching the news, watch ATI, so that you can focus on some priorities. Great question. Other questions? I think I saw one about the basic concept template. If you want to pull that up real quick, how could you use that? That's a great question, whoever asked that in the audience. So this could be on anything. That's what I love about it. It's a generic template. It's not like systems disorder. I could put in myocardial infarction on this, and that could be, chapter 300. I'm making this up, and what are some related content with it? Well, so maybe I'm going to choose levels of prevention. So what are some of the, demographics I need to consider, with this? Underlying principles, hereditary kind of things. I mean, I love thinking like this on paper. So the basic concept can guide you for almost any concept you don't know about. And then think about the who, what, why, and where. Well, what are some nursing interventions? Well, Maybe it's for the RN, they're going to administer, I'm going to make up cardiac medications with this, or maybe they're going to give nitroglycerin. When I would give that, every whatever minutes for that. Why am I giving it? To increase vasodilation. How am I going to give it? Perhaps I'm going to give it sublingually. So, these are great templates that, again, handwriting, right, legibly, but you're going to remember that. So when you're struggling with a concept, this template actually may be a great guide for you. And so I highly recommend. What's on the bottom of that as we scroll down?
That's all. You just have a lot of space to type.
So again, you can make that whatever you want it to be. I used active learning templates a lot with my students. They're great for post-conferences. If you're having a topic discussion that happens on the unit, bring this one along and say, hey guys, can we map this out? And maybe we can figure out, maybe you'll hear or see something differently. So I hope that helps, but these are wonderful. And again, archive these, keep them.
Yes, absolutely. So another question I saw on there, what's the difference between board vitals and learning systems? The questions.
Go ahead.
Questions. Learning systems is something you have access to the whole way through. Board vitals is geared towards the end of your program. So it'll open up 4 months before you graduate. You'll have it for 2 months after you graduate. Some programs do not purchase this. So if you don't have it, I'm sorry, but you can purchase it. You can go to the ATI store and get it anytime. And the board vitals is more advanced questions. So learning systems, there's some easier stuff in there as you're learning it. Board vitals is all about that full-on NCLEX prep. It's going to be more aligned to the NCLEX categories, that test plan stuff we talked about at the beginning. So it's going to be just that next level up, more questions for you to practice as you're buckling down and getting ready to sit for those boards.
We're excited. I am thrilled for this audience today. You guys have been amazingly interactive. We love your questions and your comments, and we hope that we've helped you. If you ever want to know more, please let us know. Please take the survey. We're so happy to help you with that. But we want to, give you your time back in the day. We know you're busy with that. Want to wish you lots of success. There's more coming, in 2023. So we'll be coming back at you. And again, it's a pleasure to have you in our audience. I wish we could see all your faces because your energy is contagious. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Amanda. Thank you to Dr. T. Stevens for joining us today. We hope you have a great day and a great takeaway, and be resilient and use your ATI. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. McMahon, and thank you all for joining in. Have a great day today.
Take care, everybody.